Garcia and Kevin Santiago are unpacking their belongings in their new kitchen, trying to figure out where to put everything. They have more cabinets here compared to the apartment that they just lived in. The Santiagos are settling into this house they bought last month in Virginia Beach. In 2021, a study by personal finance website Smart Asset found that in this part of Virginia, Black people are closing the wealth gap.
Homes build equity over time, and that equity either you can refinance, you can take out a HELOC on a home and use that money to purchase another home, and it's just the amount of money that you can build in a home is very, very important.
For Garcia, the importance of home ownership was passed down in her family.
When my parents first bought their home in Byram, Mississippi, we were the second Black family in our entire neighborhood. And at that time, my parents also set us down and they explained to us why that was, right? Because a lot of Black people couldn't afford homes. Even though you think that redlining doesn't exist today, like we still know, a Black family can put their house on a market, and if you bring a white family in, the house is gonna appraise higher than versus the Black family.
Historically, Black Americans have faced systemic challenges and discriminatory policies that have prevented them from achieving home ownership in Virginia.
I think there are a host of historic events, policies, and processes that have contributed to the disadvantage that African Americans are experiencing when it comes to wealth and home ownership. A lot of it is rooted in redlining.
Redlining is both a term and a practice. It was used by mortgage lenders and realtors to grade neighborhoods, ranking them from least risky to risky, or from A to D. Places labeled D were marked on a map like this one of Richmond, signaling spaces not worthy of home ownership or lending programs. The D areas were often where Black people lived.
The urban planning.
For Latoya Gray Sparks, learning about urban renewal and redlining made her realize that the geographies where she grew up in Richmond were geographies of isolation, limiting access to opportunities. Now, Gray Sparks makes her own maps to reclaim the narrative, like this map where she used a directory to show the businesses and families that made up downtown Richmond before urban renewal.
I think that's what led to just this deep dive into Black neighborhoods within Richmond, and finding that the places that were declared to be blighted weren't blighted at all. There were streetscapes that existed that could rival what we see here in the Fan or Museum District, but they're no longer around because they were demolished to make way for a highway or whatever other project the city was interested in.
Fees and bills for you to hire them.
Damon Harris, founder of Teal House Company in Richmond, says he's committed to reducing displacement, restoring equity, and finding ways to increase home ownership rates.
How much they're going to cost?
Harris says redlining and discrimination still affect aspiring homeowners today.
In 2023, the Black homeownership rate is the same as it was in the 60s, the early 60s. It's almost identical in certain areas to what it was pre-Civil Rights Act. And so what we see a great gap of almost 40% in certain communities.
But Harris says millennials are contributing to the rise in Black home ownership rates. The Santiagos agree.
It's really home ownership that you're going to be able to build that equity. And again, that generational wealth. I feel like we always come back to generational wealth, but that's the goal, right?
Thank you for watching. Continue to follow Virginia News and Stories by subscribing to our VPM YouTube channel.